5 years after graduating from high school, I became a junior clerk. In the same year, my family began to urge me to get married. Betas don't need the passionate love and high-standard mate selection criteria like alphas and omegas. For betas, it's good enough to settle down as soon as possible and complete the reproductive task. I was struggling with how to refuse the next blind date. Michael sent me a message. Sebastian, are you coming to the class reunion in a couple of days? Class reunion? I seem to have glanced at it in the class group a couple of days ago. But because I didn't know if that person would be there, I didn't sign up in the group at that time. Sebastian, it's not that mom is pushing you, but what are you being so picky about as a beta? Do you still want to find an alpha or an omega? Don't aim too high, okay? While I was hesitating, my mom's message popped up. Instead of replying to my mom's message, I reopened the chat box with Michael. I'll come. The other side replied instantly. Okay, I'll tell the class monitor. Michael, in the private room, couldn't help but smile and opened the chat box with the high school class monitor. He didn't have the patience to type anymore and sent a voice message directly. Monitor, Sebastian is also going to the class reunion. Add his name to the list. Hudson beside him, seeing his overjoyed look, couldn't help but tease him. Did you invite your childhood friend? You look so happy. Michael said proudly. Of course I'm happy. Sebastian didn't sign up at first, but he came as soon as I invited him. Hudson clicked his tongue at him twice, then turned to look at the third person in the private room who had been silent for a long time. Daniel, tell him off quickly and deflate his arrogance. The third person who was called on didn't answer immediately. Instead, he first stubbed out the cigarette in his hand. His handsome face was hidden in the curling smoke and his slightly hoarse voice from the smoke slowly came out. What should I say? He really should be happy. Seeing that he didn't help him, Hudson pouted, then found fault with Michael from another aspect and started bickering noisily. And that third person, Daniel, seemed not to have gotten out of the previous topic yet. He stubbed out his cigarette and stopped drinking. He lowered his eyes and pondered something on his own. After a long time, he murmured two words in a low voice. Sebastian. It seemed like an unconscious repetition and also like an intimate whisper between lovers. When I got to the hotel entrance, I instinctively shrank back a little. What if I meet him? Should I say, hello, long time no see? Or ask, how have you been recently first? I paced back and forth and hesitated again and again. Sebastian. A familiar voice came from behind. I stiffened. Before I could turn around, someone put their arm around my shoulder. Why are you standing at the door and not going in? Are you waiting for me? It's Michael, my childhood friend and good buddy. Also a friend of that person. Michael, you and your childhood friend can have a good catch up in this cold winter. I'll go in with Daniel first. I froze completely and didn't even dare to turn my head. Michael was whispering something in my ear, but I didn't take it in at all. After the two of them walked a bit further, that back figure inevitably came into my sight. He had grown taller and thinner. Until we all walked into the hotel, he didn't look back. I suddenly felt like laughing at myself. 5 years have passed, and we're just the most unfamiliar classmates. We weren't very close before, and now it's even more so. Sebastian, it's cold outside. Let's go in too. I nodded and followed Michael in, driven by selfish motives. Even if Daniel doesn't have the slightest impression of me, I still struggle to get closer to him. So I followed Michael and came to his side. There was only one person between him and me. Just like in high school, when there was only one person between us, we could get acquainted. But 8 years have passed, and we're still the same. Neither too close nor too far. It seems as if there is an insurmountable high wall between us. According to the rules of this kind of banquet, one should drink some wine. However, the person who was once defiled by me because of alcohol is not far away. I simply can't bring myself to drink alcohol in front of him anyway. Michael noticed my reluctance and stopped the offered wine for me. Forget it. Bring some juice for our Sebastian, as expected of my good friend. I gave him a smiling look with curved eyes, but unexpectedly locked eyes with Daniel. His look was a bit cold, completely treating me like a stranger. I immediately stopped smiling and slowly withdrew my gaze. My heart was pounding like crazy, even louder than the beating of a drum. After 3 rounds of drinks, I finally managed to collect my thoughts. Just then, everyone was chatting about daily life and asked about me. Sebastian, do you have a partner? Is it an alpha, A beta or an omega? I just shook my head at first, but when I noticed a gaze from Daniel's side, my heart tightened. I stammered and began to clarify. I don't have a partner. I'm single. If I were to look for one, it would definitely be a beta. The girl who asked the question nodded, with a rather regretful tone. Oh, Sebastian, you're so good looking. Why are you just a beta? Hearing this, Michael leaned over and put his arm on my shoulder. So what if he's a beta? Anyway, no one says that a beta can only be with a beta, right? I smiled helplessly and gently removed Michael's heavy arm. Although I knew he was joking, I still whispered back, it's more suitable for betas to be with other betas. After saying this, I felt a direct gaze fall on me. Looking in the direction of the feeling, it turned out to be Daniel. He stared directly at me, as if in a daze. I was so flustered that I didn't know what to do and awkwardly shifted my gaze away. After asking me, someone else asked, Daniel, what about Daniel? You're so excellent. You must already have a partner, right? I lowered my head and sipped my juice, but my ears were pricked up more than anyone else's. Yes, I have a fiancé. We're getting married soon. Sure enough, I wanted to grip the cup tightly, but I just couldn't muster the strength. Michael frowned and asked, Daniel, when did you get a fiancé? How come I didn't know? Daniel glanced in Michael's direction intentionally or unintentionally. Out of the corner of his eye, that person never looked up, as if not caring about these things at all. Well, he doesn't really want others to know about our relationship, so I've never mentioned it. The people around murmured in confusion. Who is it? How outstanding an omega must he be to turn down an excellent alpha like you? Daniel gave a bitter smile, his tone indescribably sour. Yeah. I also want to know why he just doesn't take a fancy to me? As soon as he finished speaking, I suddenly stood up and smiled apologetically at the people around me. Sorry, I need to go to the restroom. A handful of cold water was splashed on my face to wash away the liquid that shouldn't have appeared. I'm extremely disappointed, even though I have no right to be. I didn't have the courage to go back. I could only take out my phone and send a message to Michael. I'm not feeling well, so I'm going straight home. Please say sorry for me. When I walked out of the restroom, I put away my phone and looked up at the path. But unexpectedly, I locked eyes with Daniel at the door. He also saw me. He slowly put out his cigarette and exhaled a puff of smoke. When did he start smoking? I clearly remember that he disliked people smoking around him in high school. At least every time I went there, I could see him frowning and asking the people around him to put out their cigarettes. Is it because of his fiancée? Just thinking that this might be the reason made my heart feel swollen and painful, and my eyes couldn't stop getting sore. I quickly lowered my eyes and turned my head, not daring to look at his face. I also quickened my pace. If I, who was eager to escape at that time, could have looked back at Daniel, I would have found that the alpha state was unstable. So unstable that even though I, a beta, couldn't smell pheromones, I would have noticed something was wrong because of the scarlet in his eyes and his overly cold and stern eyebrows. It's a pity that I didn't look back, and there wasn't enough time to look back. I only had time to feel a pain in the back of my neck, and then I remembered nothing. In a daze, I heard someone whispering in my ear, "Baby, how about turning you into an omega? The kind that can only survive on my pheromones for a lifetime. Then baby will always only look at me, right?" The voice was gentle and the tone was also negotiable, but it just made me shiver involuntarily and feel cold all over. I wanted to say no and also wanted to ask how a beta could possibly turn into an omega, but I couldn't say a single word. I felt heavy all over, and I couldn't even open my eyelids. When I woke up again, I was lying in a completely unfamiliar room. The exquisitely carved furniture and the shining chandelier everywhere showed that the owner of the house had an unusual status. I tried to get up several times, but in the end I could only lie on the bed gasping for breath. With a click, the door opened. The person I least dared to hope for walked right in front of me. "Sebastian, are you feeling better?" I stared at Daniel in front of me with wide eyes in disbelief and couldn't figure out why I was in Daniel's house. And Daniel restrained a bit of his smile and put down the plate in his hand. "Don't you remember me, Sebastian? I'm Daniel, a friend of Michael's." I blinked my eyes and let out an with a nasal sound. He sat down on the edge of the bed and naturally wanted to help me up. Suddenly, I didn't know where I got the strength. I propped myself up all of a sudden and clumsily pushed against Daniel's outstretched arm. "No, no need. I can do it myself." And Daniel glanced at my hand on his arm seemingly casually and then withdrew his action. I withdrew my hand and secretly scolded myself for being so abrupt. Daniel picked up the white porridge beside him, blew on it to cool it down, and asked me, "How do you feel now? Is your body still weak?" I nodded and hesitantly asked, "What's wrong with me? Why did I suddenly end up here?" Daniel naturally tested the temperature of the congee with his mouth and brought it to my lips. "You fainted in the hotel. I took you to get checked. The doctor said it might be a second-stage differentiation. I don't know your home address, so I brought you back to my place first." Second-stage differentiation? I'm already this old. How could I still have a second-stage differentiation? Under all the shocks, I slowly opened my mouth and swallowed the congee in front of my lips. By the time I realized it was the spoon that Daniel had touched, my face was already burning red. And Daniel remained calm and scooped up another spoonful to feed me. I kept scolding myself for having improper thoughts. I tried hard to suppress the flush on my face and timidly started a conversation with Daniel. Did my second-stage differentiation succeed? Daniel held the bowl and spoon and didn't answer me right away. I looked at him, not knowing what was going on. Suddenly, a faint smell of ebony and agarwood wafted into my nose, getting stronger and more overpowering. My body suddenly started to feel hot and itchy. I had no choice but to grab onto Daniel's shoulders for support. "Stop. Stop releasing it. It feels so strange." Daniel put down the chopsticks and bowl in his hand and hugged me back. "Sorry, I just wanted to release a little to see if you're an alpha or an omega. Maybe because you've just differentiated, you're a bit sensitive." I buried my face in his neck and gasped softly. His hand stroked my back again and again. But I didn't feel any better. Instead, the itching deep in my bones became even worse. I stared blankly at the neck in front of me and couldn't help but want to stick out my tongue to lick his gland that emitted the scent of ebony and agarwood. But I couldn't. He was Daniel. I held it in until my eyes ached, and my fingers trembled uncontrollably. Daniel noticed my strange behavior and lifted my face. "Sebastian, what's wrong with you?" My eyes gradually became blurred, and I couldn't catch my breath. I had to stick out my tongue and pant like a puppy. Daniel frowned slightly. He must have thought I was being rude. I was so ashamed that tears welled up in the corners of my eyes. I really wanted to explain and apologize to him. But before I could retract my tongue, it was caught by someone. The other person pushed my tongue back into my mouth. I was kissed until my consciousness was scattered. Who was it? Who was kissing me? There were only two people in the room. Could it really be Daniel kissing me? Even though he already had a fiancée, he still helped me. An indescribable sense of guilt welled up in my heart. Under the great stimulation, tears streamed down my face. Even Daniel's face was wet. He moved his lips and tongue away and wiped the tears from my face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Sebastian. I just couldn't hold back." I choked with sobs and couldn't say a word. I felt uncomfortable all over and was burdened with guilt in my heart. The more I cried, the harder it was to stop. Eventually, I fainted from crying. Daniel gently wiped the tears from the person on the bed and then turned around, walked out of the room and made a phone call. Once outside the room, Daniel dropped his gentle expression and soft tone. He fainted from crying. "Come and check on him." A careless voice came from the other end of the phone. "My Mr. Daniel, didn't I tell you to take it easy during the initial stage of his differentiation and not to wear him out?" Daniel rubbed his temples. "I didn't do much to him. I just gave him a kiss." James burst into laughter, completely disbelieving. "Oh my God, really? Is your little sweetheart that innocent? Fainted from just one kiss?" Daniel grew impatient. "Come here quickly. I'm afraid he might have some after effects." James gradually stopped laughing. Don't worry. You're the one who took the medicine. What after effects could he possibly have? He probably just got weak because he differentiated not long ago. I'll come over and take a look later. Daniel hung up the phone and couldn't help reaching for a cigarette. But then he remembered the person in the room behind him and threw the cigarette he had taken out into the trash can. Forget it. The person in the room doesn't like the smell of cigarettes. When they start living together in the future, he can't smoke anymore. He has to quit from now on. When I woke up again, I was still at Daniel's house. As soon as I moved my arm slightly, the man with his head down beside me immediately looked up. I saw the bloodshot eyes under Daniel's eyes, and I was both surprised and my heart tightened. Are you okay? Are you okay? I didn't expect that one day we would say the same thing at the same time. I suppressed the sweet and coy feeling in my heart and shook my head. He let out a sigh of relief and smiled at me. That's good. Then do you want to eat something? I stammered in reply to him. I can eat anything. He was amused by my dull look and reached out to touch my head. Then how about steamed eggs and shrimp congee? I remember you liked this in high school. I just don't know if you still like it now. I was so dizzy that I just knew how to smile stupidly and didn't notice the faint uneasiness in the second half of his sentence. Yes. After changing clothes and going downstairs, I sat nervously on the edge of the chair. Originally, I was always on tenterhooks, afraid that Daniel's fiancée would suddenly rush in and ask who the scheming beta was. But Daniel's cooked were really good. As I ate, I got more and more into it. I completely forgot about everything. After having a comfortable and full meal, I took the initiative to do the dishes out of embarrassment. Daniel didn't decline too much. Instead, he stood not far from me and quietly watched. Because he was beside me, I was always on edge. I was washing the dishes in a hurry and almost forgot to add dish soap. Daniel beside me let out a soft laugh, which made my face burn. Sebastian, why are you so nervous? Daniel asked gently. I stammered in reply. Huh? No, I'm just a bit slow-witted because of my second differentiation. Oh, I see. While saying that, Daniel naturally reached out and stroked my head again. Then it's really hard for our Sebastian. My mind went blank all of a sudden. I stiffly rubbed my hand holding the plate and stared intently at the sink, not daring to move my eyes away at all. Well, Daniel, why haven't I seen your fiancée? Doesn't she live here? I abruptly changed the topic and nervously pursed my lips. I was afraid that Daniel would think I was rude. Why would Sebastian suddenly ask this? Are you very concerned? Daniel didn't sound annoyed as I had imagined. Instead, he seemed to be in a good mood and teased me. As expected of Daniel, he is always so tolerant and gentle. But I knew I had said something inappropriate. I just shook my head and tightly shut my mouth. After washing the dishes, I couldn't wait to leave. Daniel, thank you for taking care of me these days. I'll treat you to a meal another day. Then I'll leave first. I didn't manage to leave because Daniel actually grabbed me. I panicked and tried to pull my sleeve back, but I couldn't tug it free no matter how hard I tried. What's wrong? Daniel? I looked up at him and saw that the man who had been smiling just now had now turned cold-faced. His cold face now was different from that in high school. In high school, his cold face just showed because he always had a calm expression. And now, there was obviously some other emotion beneath his cold face. Was he angry? I don't know why, but such a him made me feel strange and a little scared for no reason. However, it was just a matter of a few blinks. Daniel soon softened his expression again. Sebastian, you've just gone through your second stage differentiation. You need someone to take care of you. How about staying with me for now? I came to my senses, and the momentary fear soon vanished. Maybe it was the natural physiological characteristics of alphas and omegas at play. How could I be afraid of Daniel? No, it would be too much trouble for you. I'll go to the hospital for a checkup and then get some medicine. Hearing this, Daniel let out a puff of laughter. Sebastian, the hospital may not be able to detect this kind of differentiation. How could that be? Daniel sighed and confessed to me. Actually, your secondary gender differentiation is because of me. Recently, the company under my name has been developing a drug that can upgrade an alpha to an epsilon. I was the first tester of the first batch of the finished drug. As a result, my pheromones have become a bit out of control. On the day of the class reunion, when we met at the toilet door, my pheromones were leaking out, which just triggered your secondary gender differentiation. So, I'm responsible for taking good care of you. I was completely stunned by his words and didn't want to reject him from the bottom of my heart. However, if I continued to stay with him, I might not be able to control myself well. So I said, no, I don't want to stay here, and I don't need your care. Thank you. After leaving Daniel's house that day, I originally thought he would just give up. But unexpectedly, he started to pick me up from work every day, take me to eat delicious food, and take me out for a drive. Gradually, we started to chat. We chatted intermittently and ramblingly about a lot of things. I was surprised to find that he also remembered clearly many small things buried in my heart. It was as if it was truly our shared youth rather than just a memoir of my bitter and hopeless unrequited love. Although I was extremely happy to be with him, I would always remember the fact that he had a fiancée. Whenever he looked at me and smiled, I would suddenly come to my senses. So I started to avoid him again, making excuses like having work to do at the company or being too tired that day. Although I managed to avoid him physically, my heart always lingered on him. Just when I was thinking of going out to relax, Michael came to invite me out for a dinner gathering. I thought it would just be the two of us, so I casually agreed. When I got there, I was stunned. Sitting right across from me was none other than Daniel. I quickly grabbed Michael, who had just entered the door, and whispered to him, "Why is Daniel here too?" Michael looked at me with a clear look in his eyes and said straightforwardly, "What's wrong with Daniel being here? Let's just get together." Sensing that Daniel looked up in our direction, I quickly covered Michael's mouth. "Keep your voice down." No wonder I misunderstood. Since high school, Michael has always hung out with me and his good buddies separately. He rarely pulled me into his other small circle. Michael also realized that something was wrong. He lowered his head and whispered to me, "What's wrong? Do you feel embarrassed? We've played together before. It's okay, right? And don't think Daniel always has a gloomy face. He's quite friendly. It was his idea to invite you this time. Don't worry." "Thanks, I'm even more worried now." Feeling depressed, I could only follow Michael there in small steps. "Daniel, you came so early?" "Yeah." I sat in my seat, absent-mindedly listening to the two chatting. Daniel seemed to be in a low mood today. He said as little as possible. Fortunately, the other people came later and the situation became normal. "Hey, Michael, why are you willing to bring your little wife out today?" I don't know who made a joke casually when sitting down. Michael smiled. "Get out of here. Our Sebastian is shy. Stop teasing him." Everyone started to boo and got even more excited. Michael didn't explain anymore. I also knew it was just a joke and didn't take it seriously. Actually, it's useless to take it seriously. In high school, some people also joked about us like this. No one cared even if I explained. Michael advised me at that time, "They're just joking. No one takes it seriously. Don't be angry." After a while, I really lost the patience to explain and just let them do as they pleased. Just then, Daniel, who had been quiet all this time, suddenly spoke up. "Come on, if you want to show your affection, go outside. I'm here to have a meal. Don't get in my way." My heart skipped a beat and I cautiously glanced at him. As expected, he had already frowned. I rarely saw him looking so impatient and I became nervous all of a sudden. However, the others seemed to be used to it and still looked happy. Michael even directly put his arm around Daniel's shoulder and said, "What, are you jealous of me, bro?" I saw Daniel close his eyes, then seemingly casually glance in my direction. Then he removed Michael's hand and calmed his tone. "Let's order food." Most of the people at the table were acquaintances and they were making a lot of noise, chattering away. At the whole dinner table, Daniel and I were the quietest. After a few rounds of drinks, I got up to go to the toilet. When I came out, Daniel was washing his hands at the sink. After hesitating for a long time, I still decided to ask, "Are you unhappy today?" He turned to look at me, showing no expression. I quickly explained, "I'm just asking. I don't mean anything else. If you don't want to talk about it, just pretend I never asked." He shook the water off his hands, paused for a while, and then said, "There are really some things that make me unhappy. Recently, my fiancée has been avoiding me. I finally found an excuse to invite her out, but she actually brought another man with her on purpose to annoy me. Tell me, how can I be happy?" I didn't expect it was because of this reason. It was like I was slapped hard in the face. I stammered and couldn't say a word. I'm really stupid. At this moment, I was still thinking that if I were Daniel's fiancée, I wouldn't let him suffer such grievances. Daniel suddenly moved a little closer to me and our breaths almost intertwined. Sebastian, if you were in this situation, what would you do? Having come this far, I could only muster the courage to speak up. Well, just have a good talk. How can there be grudges between husband and wife that last overnight? I think your fiancé must just be throwing a tantrum and doesn't really want to leave you. After hearing this, Daniel hooked the corner of his mouth and moved even closer. Really? Do you really think so? The breath from his words swept directly across my face, and I was so startled that my body went stiff. He noticed my stiffness and moved a bit farther away. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, he stroked my head again. Then I'll take your kind words. How annoying. Who wants to give kind words to you and your fiancé? I was feeling a little disappointed when I heard him change the subject. But what if things don't go well? I still think it's best to lock him up. Then he'll only look at me forever and will never be lovey-dovey with other men again. It's a one-shot solution. Sebastian, what do you think? If it weren't for the fact that I had definitely drunk tea instead of wine just now, I'd even suspect that I was having hallucinations. I looked up at him in surprise, but he didn't seem to be joking at all. His expression was very serious. I stammered as I tried to organize my words. No, don't do this. It's illegal and you'll get arrested. Realizing something, I quickly added. Moreover, your fiancé will also be unhappy, and you'll drift further apart. But Daniel didn't say anything else. He just stared at me intently for a while. I was getting more and more panicked and didn't know how to persuade him. But then he suddenly laughed again. Just kidding. Look at how scared you are. Okay, let's go out. They must be looking for us. He led me back to my seat, acting as normal as if nothing had happened. My mood sank even lower, and his words kept echoing in my mind. How could Daniel say such a thing? After that dinner gathering, I just couldn't forget those words. I was extremely annoyed and depressed. I didn't know who to talk to. After much thought, I decided to find Michael. As soon as I told him I had something to confide in him, he immediately invited me to a restaurant outside on the weekend. After repeatedly confirming that it would be just the two of us, I agreed. Who would have thought that right after I agreed, he posted on his WeChat moments. Sebastian invited me out on a date this Saturday. Which outfit should I wear? I was both amused and exasperated by his antics. I thought it was just a joke and just smiled it off. In the group chat of Michael, Hudson, and Daniel, Hudson sent several emojis to despise Michael for getting carried away, and Michael retorted defiantly. Neither of them noticed that the third person in the group hadn't said a single word from beginning to end. Michael was still thinking, why is Daniel so busy that he doesn't even pop up to congratulate me? He didn't know that one man's meat is another man's poison. I also didn't know that love could not only make people feel inferior but also drive them crazy. At 12 o'clock noon on Saturday, I arrived at the restaurant on time. Just as I sat down across from Michael, and before I had a chance to order, Daniel called. Hello, Daniel? There was no reply at first. Instead, heavy breathing came through the phone. I thought his account had been hacked and was about to hang up. Sebastian. I stood up abruptly, ignoring Michael's puzzled look. Daniel? What's wrong with you? Michael also stood up with me. Sebastian, my susceptible period has come early. I'm in so much pain. Can you help me? Naturally, I readily agreed, completely forgetting my previous intention to avoid suspicion. Sebastian, can you come alone? I don't want others to see me in such a mess. I hesitated for half a second and said to Michael, sorry, I have an urgent matter to attend to. I'll treat you next time to make up for it. After saying that, I rushed off in a hurry. On my way to Daniel's house, I still dialed the hospital's phone number. It said online that if an alpha susceptible period is severe, they either need to find an omega or go to the hospital. I don't have the contact information of his fiancée, so it's safer to call the hospital. Daniel doesn't want to be seen by Michael, but it should be okay for the doctor, right? When I arrived at Daniel's house, the hospital's ambulance had already arrived. As I walked inside, 2 medical staff were trying their best to restrain a disheveled person. I could hardly believe my eyes. Was this Daniel? I had just met him a few days ago, but today I almost couldn't recognize him. His figure was no longer upright. Instead, he seemed a bit hunched. It was obvious that he had been severely tortured. I had never seen him in such a sorry state before. For someone as proud as him, how sad must he be? I wanted to say something, only to find my voice already choked with sobs. Zhou. Xian. He turned around slowly, and his originally vacant eyes gradually focused on me. Suddenly, those bloodshot eyes burst with intense anger and resentment. He struggled violently and tried to come towards me, and I was like being bewitched. I only felt heartache and also wanted to walk towards him. But just as I took a few steps, I was stopped by the medical staff, and so was he. I was notified to wait outside. When leaving the room, I heard Daniel growl in a voice hoarse beyond measure. Give me my Omega. Give me my Sebastian. An hour later, it got quiet inside. The medical staff came out, and I stepped forward. Doctor, how is he? His condition has been temporarily stabilized. As long as his Omega comforts him well later, it'll be fine. I bit my lip and said, but I can't contact his Omega for the time being. Can't you prescribe some medicine to help him get through this? The doctor looked serious and said, taking medicine at this time is the worst option. It's best for his Omega to come. Moreover, he said his Omega is right here. Why can't you contact him? After seeing the doctor off, I hesitated for a long time and then entered Daniel's bedroom. Since his condition has been stabilized, it should be okay for me to get a little closer, right? I pushed the man on the bed with dark circles under his eyes. Although I was extremely reluctant to wake him up, I still had to contact his fiancée as soon as possible. Daniel, what's your fiancé's phone number? I'll call him. When he comes, you won't be in so much pain. The man in the bed opened his eyes and turned his head towards me. There was already stubble on his tired face, and his hair was all in a mess. My nose stung, and I could only keep apologizing. I'm sorry, really. I should have found your fiancé earlier, but Before I could finish my words, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me onto the bed. He wrapped his 2 hands around my neck, leaving me only a tight space to breathe. He held me tightly and murmured, why did you avoid me? Why did you still run away? I grabbed his wrist, trying to bring him back to his senses. Daniel, it's me. I'm Sebastian, not your fiancé. I pronounced the last few words with difficulty, as if stabbing myself in the heart. The tenderness of these past few months was still torn open, revealing the cruelest truth. However, Daniel seemed to be even more hurt and suddenly tightened his hands. Sebastian, no. I won't let you run away again. He repeated the same words 2 or 3 times, and as my breathing became more and more difficult, I could only stutter out a sentence. Daniel, I'm in pain. The man on top of me stopped talking. As if waking up from a dream, he came to his senses, hurriedly let go of his hands, and slumped to the side. Sebastian. I didn't mean to. I gasped for air, and the tears welling up in the corners of my eyes kept flowing. Daniel apologized again and again, and his outstretched hand hesitated and didn't dare to touch me. When had I ever seen him so timid? For a moment, I even forgot about my own discomfort and hugged him sideways. It's not your fault. You were so good. How could it be your fault? He froze for a moment, tentatively hugged me back, and then tightened his grip as if he wanted to meld me into his bones. Sebastian, you do like me a little, don't you? Since you came to see me, it means you care about me, right? Just say it. As long as you say it, I'll believe you. I bit my lip and was completely at a loss. I couldn't admit that I liked him. So I pushed him. Daniel, that's enough. He slowly let go of his hands and looked at me as if he had been badly hurt. I avoided his gaze and lowered my head. I'll help you find your fiancé. He grabbed me tightly with all his strength. I frowned in pain but still didn't dare to look at him. But he laughed softly with an indescribable sneer in his tone. Sebastian, how long are you going to keep pretending to be stupid? I tried my best to break free from his hands and was almost in tears. What pretending to be stupid? What are you talking about? He suddenly went crazy again and pinned me down, holding me tightly. Sebastian, what on earth is so good about him, Michael? What am I inferior to him? I stared at him with wide eyes, not knowing where to start. It felt like we were talking at cross purposes, because Daniel was already acting like a madman and had completely lost his senses. 3 years and then another 5 years. I don't want to wait any longer. Sebastian, I don't care about anything that happened before. As long as you love me from now on. Will you only love me from now on? By the end of his speech, his tone was almost pleading and a few tears fell. Although I still hadn't sorted everything out, I couldn't bear to see him cry. I instinctively softened and wiped the tears from his face. But such an action seemed to be understood by the Alpha as a signal of permission, and he pounced on me recklessly. For 3 consecutive days, I completely transformed from a beta into an omega. For 23 years, my glands, which had extremely low presence, were opened again and again, filled with the pheromones of the ebony and sandalwood scent. I cried, I suffered, and I wanted to beg Daniel to stop. But as soon as he apologized to me and pleaded with me, I lost all my bottom line. Sebastian, stop looking at him. Will you look at me too? I love you too, Sebastian. I also want to be your childhood friend. Why won't you just give me a chance? Sebastian, don't be afraid of me. Please don't be afraid of me. I also wanted to take it step by step, but you're always like this. He rambled on and on that day, repeating the same things over and over again. In the end, he only had one sentence left. Sebastian, do you love me? Yes, I love you. Didn't I make it clear in every look I gave you long ago? I love you, Daniel. But we shouldn't be like this, shouldn't be connected in such a disgraceful way. After 3 days, he returned to normal and I was exhausted. From that day on, whenever I smelled the scent of ebony and sandalwood, I would tremble all over. From that day on, he confined me in his house like a kind of house arrest. But it's okay. My mental state is not suitable for going out right now. I don't know what kind of feelings I have for Daniel now. When he gets close, I subconsciously want to avoid him. When he is disappointed, I subconsciously want to get closer. During the day, he tries to avoid me, but at night he can only fall asleep next to me. In the first 2 days, he knelt beside my bed, held my little finger and lay on the bed to sleep. If I made a slight movement in the morning, he would wake up suddenly and then leave the room. Later, when my stress reaction was a little less, he would get into bed to sleep. But he always behaved properly. Sometimes he grabbed the edge of my pajamas and sometimes he just touched my hair. Occasionally, when I got up earlier than him, I could still see the pillow with tear stains on the side of his face. Daniel, when did you become more timid than me? I don't know which day it was since I was under house arrest. I was staring blankly out of the window. Daniel came over and pulled my hand. Sebastian, shall I take you to a fun place? I followed him and came to a place like a basement. The words he said before suddenly came back to my mind. I opened my eyes in horror. He wouldn't, and before I had time to struggle, the door of the basement opened. Different from what I imagined, this small room was quite warm and bright. Daniel held my hand and introduced it to me. Look, this is our high school graduation album. This building block figure is the New Year gift you gave me in high school. It's a pity there is only one. He explained them to me one by one, and I gradually let down my guard. At this time, a notebook caught my attention, and I couldn't help crying out. Isn't this my notebook? I picked up the notebook and started flipping through it. Daniel affectionately hugged me from behind and rested his head on my shoulder. Yes, you lost it, and I kept it for you. This notebook was used by me to record the time when I had a secret crush on Daniel. Later, I don't know how, it suddenly disappeared. But when I wrote those thoughts, I didn't write Daniel's real name, so I didn't bother to look for it. Now that I saw it, I felt a mix of emotions. Strangely, the pages where I wrote my thoughts were all scratched to varying degrees. The blank pages at the back were also filled with my name. Sometimes it was a page of Sebastian, and sometimes it was another page of Sebastian. I felt more and more confused. Finally, I turned to the last page. Ah! I threw the notebook down in horror, as if I had seen a ghost. Daniel reached out from behind me and picked up the notebook. What's wrong, Sebastian? Isn't our wedding photo nice? The last page of the notebook was painted red. There were 2 figures in school uniforms cut from a group photo pasted on it, which were clearly me and Daniel. It was obvious who had taken this notebook and who had ruined it. And Daniel still said in a relaxed tone, this one is really not very nice. When we get married later, we'll take a better one. After coming out of the basement that day, I became even more depressed. I would always shed tears for no reason every day. It wasn't out of fear or anger. I'm sad about everything between Daniel and me. Daniel realized my sadness and always tried his best to make me happy. But the more he did so, the sadder I became. Why did we end up in such a situation? One day, Daniel came over, carefully leaned his head on my lap and shed tears. Sebastian, I'm sorry. I didn't reply to him. In fact, I don't even know if I really blame him. If we really look into it, haven't I been knowingly indulging him? He took a deep breath and said in the softest tone possible, I'll let you go. Don't hate me. But in the end, it wasn't him who let me go. It was Michael who came to the door. He was extremely angry, as if he knew everything. Daniel took 2 punches from him without a word and blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. Daniel, are you a brute? How could you treat someone you like this? Daniel wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and his face was so cold that I hardly recognized him. Then what can I do? Should I just watch him being deeply in love with you while you keep hesitating and hurting him? Michael, don't you know how you've treated him? Michael's face changed several times, but you shouldn't have done this either. Daniel had nothing to say this time and fell silent. I was sitting beside them. As I watched, tears welled up in my eyes. Daniel, who told you that I like him? Daniel, a bit slow on the uptake, turned around to look at me. Choking with sobs, I asked again. Daniel, who told you that the person I like is him? Who told you that the person recorded in my notebook is him? Who told you that the person who made me timid for half of my adolescence is him? If it really were him, we would have been together long ago. Why did I give gifts to all your friends just to give you the building block figure I put together by hand according to your specifications? Daniel, if you had asked them, how could you not know that your gift was the most special one? He seemed stunned and didn't answer for a long time. After a long while, he walked up to me, knelt on his knees, looked up at me, and his voice trembled slightly. Then who do you like? Sebastian, who on earth do you like? I looked at him without saying a word, only tears streaming silently. None of the 3 people in the room spoke again. Only Michael hung his head and sighed heavily. Then what happened later, Daddy? How did Daddy win you back later? Little girls in the throes of first love love to hear such love stories and kept pestering me to ask for the follow-up. But I was tired of telling the story, so I casually passed the buck. Next, you should go and ask your daddy. Let him tell the story of his own deeds. So the little girl bounced over to the kitchen door and shouted at the man inside, Daddy, Daddy, how did you win Daddy back later? The man in the kitchen was bringing out the food while answering. How else could I win him back? Atone for my sins, come clean, and when it comes to chasing someone, just be persistent and chase properly. The girl was obviously not satisfied with this answer and pouted. How boring. Shouldn't it be like he runs and you chase and he can't escape even if he has wings? Finally, Daddy, you sacrifice your life to get a little pity from Daddy. Then Daddy is at death's door but finally pulls through thanks to Daddy's love. I knocked on her head amusingly and said, go wash your hands and have a meal. Read fewer online novels all day long. Daniel chimed in on the side, exactly. Your daddy loves me so much. How could he be willing to let me be at death's door? I knocked on his head again with a smile on my lips, get out of here. However, he's right. I really can't bear it. They are originally 2 people in love. It's just that they took many detours and wasted 8 years. Once they understand each other's feelings and clear up the misunderstandings, how can they bear not to be together? Since one can have a secret crush for 8 years, what kind of hurdles and pits can't be overcome? All in all, we still got through the most painful 8th year and finally got together successfully. What those 8 years left for us in the end is no longer torture and pain. It only left us a sentence: love should be spoken out loudly at a volume that the other person can hear. Daniel looked at me, his eyes gentle. What are you thinking about so happily? Before Emma came out, I suddenly hugged Daniel around the waist. Of course, I'm thinking about you. He kissed my forehead with the corners of his mouth turned up. Really? Really?